Welcome to this virtual service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Waynesboro. The voting is over, but the election is still going on as I am recording this welcome. We still don't know with any certainty who will be president of our country on January 20th. It is very close between the two main candidates. And third-party voters once again find their understanding unrepresented in the results, regardless of who wins. Many of us have had a greater than usual amount of stress throughout this election season, so we pause to come together in this virtual medium to collect ourselves and prepare for whatever may come next. We've done our part, and now we sit with hope and uncertainty. Together, welcome. May the distance between us not separate us. I am Susan Clark, and I am grateful for this fellowship because I feel comfortable speaking my mind about a very wide range of topics. I know people in this congregation will be willing to listen and consider what is said by any one of us who might choose to speak. This congregation is committed to valuing difference among us in the world. Our tradition of freedom of the pulpit and freedom of the pew assures that our minister will always speak truth as they understand it, and that we members and attendees are free to, even expected to, make up our own minds to determine what we believe and hold to be true. We trust that we will all, following our own conscience, make decisions and form beliefs compatible with our shared values of inclusion, welcome, and engagement. We are an LGBTQ welcoming congregation, honoring the lives and relationships of people who may have been pushed to the sidelines by American religion or excluded entirely because of sexual orientation or gender identity. In addition, we follow the lead of our national association in doing our best locally to follow our commitment to be allies for racial justice and to welcome anyone of color. We continue a tradition of Unitarian Universalism to be engaged in charitable work that helps people survive the failures of our system to be just and inclusive, and to help effect change of the inequities in that system. We hope our intention and action to widen the circle of hope and inclusion is in keeping with where you are in your life and growth. We are happy you have joined this service today and hope you will return. Let us now kindle the chalice of our hearts with these words by Melanie Davis. If ever there was a time for a candle to reassure us in our uncertainty and stress, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice.
this love. We rest in this love. We rest in this love.
Our words of prayer are by Leslie Takahashi. A sea of signs at a protest above people's heads. Immigrants make America great, and no hate, no fear. Spirit of life, God of love, hear this cry, which begins with gratitude for the human ability to take action, to right the wrongs of our kin. If you are the force of love, be loving to those dear ones who would rid the world of hatred and greed. If you are the force of possibility, seed opportunity for those who believe they are forgotten. If you are a larger freedom, break the chains of oppression and ignorance in which so many lives are bound. If you are the power of healing, please, oh please bring comfort to the little ones who are imprisoned away from their sources of comfort and care. The ones still not reunited with their family. Whatever you are, any force of the more, which allows us to reach beyond this reality to a more inclusive and loving presence, give energy to the precious ones who would make a difference. And may their actions inspire all of us to do whatever is in our power to make it known that we will not allow our neighbors to be treated as less than human. As we come together, we are aware that always in our community there are joys and sorrows, stresses and pleasures. Let us now hold these joys and sorrows that are unspoken in our hearts together quietly.
Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out.
When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. when I breathe out. I breathe out love when I breathe in. I breathe in peace when I breathe out. I breathe out love when I breathe in. I breathe in peace when I breathe out. I breathe out love when I breathe in. I breathe in peace when I breathe out. I breathe out love when I breathe in. I breathe in peace when I breathe out. I breathe out love.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out.
Between 1985 and 1986, Václav Havel, first president of the Czech Republic, conducted a series of interviews with a Czech journalist. The resulting book was a kind of confessional autobiography called Long Distance Interrogation. The English translation was published in spring of 1990 and called Disturbing the Peace. This is a reading from that book. The kind of hope I often think about, especially in situations that are particularly hopeless, such as prison, I understand above all as a state of mind, not a state of the world. Either we have hope within us or we don't. Hope is not prognostication. It is an orientation of the spirit, an orientation of the heart. It transcends the world that is immediately experienced and is anchored somewhere beyond its horizons. I feel that its deepest roots are in the transcendental, just as the roots of human responsibility are, though of course I can't, unlike Christians for instance, say anything about the transcendental. Hope, in this deep and powerful sense, is not the same as joy that things are going well, or willingness to invest in enterprises that are obviously headed for early success, but rather an ability to work for something because it is good, not just because it stands a chance to succeed. The more unpromising the situation in which we demonstrate hope, the deeper that hope is. Hope is not the same thing as optimism. It is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense, regardless of how it turns out. In short, I think that the deepest and most important form of hope, the only one that can keep us above water and urge us to do good works, and the only true source of the breathtaking dimension of the human spirit and its efforts, is something we get, as it were, from elsewhere. It is also this hope, above all, that gives us the strength to live and continually to try new things, even in conditions that seem as hopeless as ours do, here and now.
Jacob fell asleep with his head upon a stone. And as he slept, he saw the angels in the sky, coming down to earth and going up to heaven. But for us, what do these angels signify? Look not heavenward, for angels look around you. They are your friends, your family, they're me. Yes, the angels, they are here. They're what you and I were always meant to be. They're what you and I were always meant to be. We are told that first the angels were ascending, and then there were the angels going down to wed Jacob, who you'd hardly call an angel. To his father's face he only brought a frown. But he changed and worked to find his higher purpose, to find his highest self that he could be. Yes, the angels, they are here. They're what you and I were always meant to be. They're what you and I were always meant to be. You don't need a dream to see the angels. You don't need a ladder to the skies. All you need to do is look around you. All you need to do is open up your eyes. Because the angels, they are you. Yes, the angels, they are me. Yes, the angels, they are here. They're what you and I were always meant to be. They're what you and I were always meant to be.
Good morning, everyone. We are AJ and Adrienne Young, and we thought we'd just share with you briefly about our experience on Election Day. We had the opportunity to work the polls on Election Day, and overall, it was a great experience. I'm so glad that we were asked to come and participate in working the polls. As to African American individuals, we considered it a great honor to be able to serve the community in that capacity. I thought that it was interesting to see so many people, many of which were first-time voters, come through the polling place, and it was such a celebratory spirit when we saw those folks come through who were casting their ballot for the very first time. And while we understand that there were people who shared the same views and as we do, we understand that there were those who felt differently, but it was such a joy to be able to see those who felt it was their duty as a citizen, not only of Waynesboro, but of this entire country, to cast their ballot.
I think one of the things that struck me is, in the rallying and demonstrations that we have been to over the last year, one of the things that is chanted is show me what democracy looks like. And then the response is, this is what democracy looks like.
Yeah.
And that on election day was what democracy looked like. People from every slice of our community, different backgrounds, different cultures coming in to participate in what is everyone's civic duty. And so I think we were really proud to be a part of that.
Yeah.
I am emotionally exhausted. I'll
Right.
just to be honest, just emotionally exhausted. But I am hopeful that that opportunity to see those people coming in to cast their ballot and making their mark is just a great example of why we do what we do. And it encourages us to keep on keeping on.
Yes, indeed. So many people were instrumental. I believe that the city of Waynesboro set a record in terms of individuals who were registered to vote, like roughly 15,000 people. And so we're just so grateful, as Adrienne said, that so many folks came out on election day. The mail-in ballot process went very smoothly, and so many people participated in that as well in the midst of COVID-19. So we're just really pleasantly surprised by the outpouring of folks who came out on election day, and we want to continue this same energy moving forward, and not just in the presidential elections, but in our midterm elections as well throughout the valley.
Forward together,
Not one step back. You all have a great one. Peace.
Hello, my name is Sharon Van Name. I'm a long-term member at UUFW, and I'm currently serving on the social justice team. On election day, I worked a 2-hour shift as a poll watcher. It's the first time I've ever done that, and it was a really interesting experience. One of the things that was a surprise is what a nice interaction I had with my counterpart from the other party. We didn't really talk about politics at all. In the few moments that when there were lulls between voters, we talked about family and about travel. And once he knew that it was my first time, he gave me some pointers as to what it was I should be looking for. I was also really impressed with the professionalism of all the poll workers. They seemed so calm and really interested in going the extra mile to make sure that every person who wanted to vote was able to. They did have to turn away a few, but it seemed to be personally painful to them. It gave me a really good feeling about how our electoral process actually works. For the rest of Election Day, I tried to detach by walking in the woods and doing as many normal things as I could. I had promised myself not to watch the returns that night, but I have to admit I got sucked in by the TV and wound up staying up way too late. That made Wednesday and Thursday a bit more difficult, which often happens when you're sleep deprived. But again, I focused on doing those things that ground me, being outside as much as possible, going to book club and talking about things far removed from the election, taking in-person and online classes, and working for organizations and causes that matter to me, ways that I can personally make a difference in the world. I'm recording this on Friday morning when we still don't know the election results. But what I do know is that there is still so much to do. We have those immediate needs, the things that are equivalent to pulling the babies from the river in that old analogy. Things like food banks and blood drives. By the time you see this, we will have had one at UUFW. If you weren't able to give then, I encourage you to give somewhere else. Clothing collections like the ones that AJ and Adrienne are doing. And of course, all of the charities that continue to need our financial support. In addition to those immediate needs, there are, of course, the social justice issues, the things equivalent to finding out why there are babies in the river in the first place. We need to continue to work on dismantling institutional racism, working on combating climate change, and doing something about the incredible income disparities, both domestically and internationally. There is so much need in this world, so many places that we need to do our part. So all in all, where I have been and remain today is hopeful and committed to continuing to work for a better world for all of us. I wish you all that same hope and peace and commitment.
Hello, I'm Laura Riggan, and I have no idea what to say or how to begin to talk about this election and what I think of its outcome. Partly because it's not quite after this election yet. It's been a hard week. Anxiety over so many things, not just the election, potential violence from disappointed voters or leaders, spiking COVID. And yet, right now, I think things are going as expected, and that's not a bad thing. As I record this, we still don't know the outcome, but we knew it was going to take a long time to count all those earlier absentee ballots. And even the uncertainty could be worse. Remember 2000? I'm optimistic that by the time you watch this, we'll have an answer, and just hope it's the one that I want. I've learned some things this week. I knew that Americans were divided, but I had been under the impression that I was part of a larger majority, that the other side is not representative of most of America, no matter how vocal they are. This close election has indicated otherwise. 4 years ago, I was stunned by the outcome of the election, frightened that hate could win, that explicit racism and misogyny and bullying was acceptable to so many people. So I thought, okay, it was a fluke. America woke up and got to work and called for change, right? The Women's March, I was there. My gosh, how powerful were we in that number of people? Earlier this year, after COVID had arrived, in between the fire season in Australia and the fire season in California and Colorado, during the endless campaign, at the point when our cities were pulsing with protest, some people moaned that 2020 was awful. So many bad things were happening. But I actually viewed that point as an upswing. The cause, of course, was both horrifying and sadly routine. The death of George Floyd, and before him, Breonna Taylor, and after them both, Ahmaud Arbery. But the nationwide reaction to what had started to become routine news, wow, it gave me hope. I thought it was part of some sea change regarding racism and the rights of people of color and the power that good people can wield when we stand up for what is right. This election has been a reminder that change is achingly slow, and the divide in this country is still there, and my majority still isn't really as major as I had imagined or hoped. I'm looking suspiciously at people I encounter at work and feeling a little bit grateful that COVID means I have to keep my distance and spend a lot of time in a room by myself. It's absolutely discouraging to realize that truth can be so easily hidden by lies or manipulation, so hard to see. The outcome of the election is looking now like it's going to have the result I was hoping for. But even as that gives me something to celebrate, I want to approach any such victory with wariness. It's hard to play defense, open to the attacks of all the critics. Let's not blow this. Let's make some progress. If it's possible, let's make some peace.
Hello everyone, this is George, and it's Friday afternoon, November 6th. The nation and the world are still waiting the final results, if not declaration, of Joe Biden as our next president. So we're all anxious to get this behind us and to look forward and to seek healing and common ground where it can be found. Let's not make this more difficult than it may seem at the moment. I thought I might also show you a hat that I bought last year called Still Learning. And I think we continue to learn about the American experiment and the democracy that we have inherited and are trying to preserve in our own special ways. I think it will be, again, providential in a way if Biden wins 306 to 232, which is an exact flip of what President Trump did for Hillary Clinton. I think it would be providential should Biden win Georgia, that the district that put him over the top and turned the state red to blue was the district of our great patriot John Lewis. But I think I'm reminded now as we move forward about an experiment, more than one experiment, but the one I know of is where Stanford University brought together some 30 people whom they had pre-selected based on their ideological and political views. But when they came into the same room, no one knew of those political affiliations. And they were given a chance to talk about issues, about their personal views and ideas. And it so happens that by the end of the session, and I forget the length, I apologize, they had actually come to consensus on more than 50 issues that previously they thought were going to be contested. The work ahead is hard. We have parallels to Rome and Caesar and other political figures such as Huey Long, and let us hope that the personality was an anomaly, but half of the nation has different views from the other. And we must come together, and I do hope that in his own way, President Biden will be to our nation and to the world as Abraham Lincoln was so many years ago. Let the healing begin, and I can't wait to see everyone in fellowship.
4 years ago, we worked our way through the aftermath of the first presidential election of my ministry here, and we did it together. I had planned another service, and then the results of the election took many of us by surprise. So I threw out my planned service. Well, at least I delayed it to a future date, and instead we opened our hearts to each other. We did not have then and do not have now any expectation at all that everyone in the congregation voted the same way. I advised and expected that everyone would search their heart, apply our shared values, apply their understanding of the issues and the risks, and vote according to their conscience. This time in the run-up to the election, I said to you, vote your informed conscience, your enlightened self-interest, your own and everyone's inherent worth and dignity, and your and our interdependence with all people everywhere, with all nature and with all reality, and encourage others to do likewise. And while that has probably led many of us to vote similarly, it almost certainly has not led everyone to cast their vote the same way. Who to vote for is a complex and complicated calculus. We each weigh and weight the separate issues differently and understand what is at risk differently, and we have voted accordingly. Here we are days later, and we still don't know the results with any certainty. The counting continues in some states. There will be recounts. There are lawsuits. It's all a process that is filled with stress for many and also with hope. I am so grateful to AJ and Adrienne, Sharon, Laura, and George for pausing amid the uncertainties to reflect on a portion of this experience. They have shown us joy and hope stress, and commitment with such clarity and meaning. They have challenged us to go beyond the outcome of the election to forging a new way forward in a divided nation. We will eventually know for sure who has won the Oval Office, but the vote is closer than most of us expected. There is no mandate for the winner to act as if their dreams for the country are the only ones that matter. On this weekend, the first Shabbat after the election, Jews worldwide studied part of the story of Abraham. And in a reflection on that Torah portion, Rabbi Menachem Feldman, director of the Lifelong Learning Department at the Chabad Lubavitch Center in Greenwich, Connecticut, writes these words: "Many spiritual seekers seek to escape worldly distractions and seek enlightenment in solitude. The more enlightenment they experience, the more removed they become from the rest of society. But Abraham taught us in this Torah portion that the closer one comes to spirituality, holiness, and transcendence, the more a person will position themselves at the opening of the tent, seeking to express kindness to whomever passes by, even when the need is not immediately obvious and present before." The ancient Greeks valued the active engagement of the individual in civil society. They looked on politics as a positive good, a way of engaging, of finding the suitable approach to the good of the many. They had a word that is the cognate and ancestor of our not very politely used word, idiot. To them, it didn't signal quite what it does in its contemporary form as an insult. It meant private citizen. But it has been suggested that among its shadings was the hint that someone didn't properly care for the body politic, that they were not sufficiently engaged for the good of the whole. This election cycle has made clear that the work for the good of the whole remains to be done. The fierce urgency of now, the need and obligation we each bear to struggle for the world that we trust and hope can be in spite of everything. Even as we have different political approaches, our Unitarian Universalist values are clear. We affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person and respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. We seek justice, compassion, and equity in human relations. We value the democratic process, and that process cannot be limited to a single election. That process calls us to engagement with the great issues of our time, no matter who is in the Oval Office or on the Supreme Court. That process calls us to use our power to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve our great inspiration we sometimes call the spirit of freedom. Let us take time to rejuvenate, to engage in our spiritual practices such as meditation or prayer, to take in the beautiful around us, to refresh our spirits in order to return to the spiritual work of this fellowship and of our movement. And so I close with this benediction. Show up for justice. Pay attention. Speak the truth. Speak your truth. And remember that the outcome always has been outside of our control. So live love and love life. Amen, and blessed be.